There's Hockenham of the Lions putting the finishing touches, at least at that point, on a monstrous win. I'm not talking about the brevity of it, but points-wise in Jacksonville. But I'll tell you, this is who I always win with. The great Dennis Fithian, D-Fifth. I love the shirt. Welcome into Football Friday, a joint task force good afternoon production. And listen, we both talked about it. We'll pick the Lions. It wasn't a big win as far as what it means overall, but the Lions won big and did what they were supposed to. I said I wouldn't get sucked back in, but if they win this week, which we'll get to the Atlanta game in a minute, all of a sudden they're 500. Did the Jacksonville win mean anything?
No, I think what Duron Harmon said was right. Doesn't mean anything. No, they go out there Sunday and down to Atlanta, they win that game. Well, okay, now you can start at least looking at the schedule and start talking about it's a soft schedule and they can get back into things. But yeah, I'm just putting everything on pause when it comes down to getting a victory against the Jags. Okay, they did it, but it doesn't mean a whole lot. You got to be able to follow it up. And this team, so far from what we've seen from this coaching staff and this particular team this year, they weren't able to follow that Arizona game up really well. So I just got to follow it up. So it doesn't mean a lot unless they go out there and pull out a victory against the Falcons on Sunday.
Yeah, Fifth, it's one of these things that we touched on it last week. By the way, so great to see you as always. As you get older, you look more and more handsome. I say that platonically. I'm a little jealous because as I get older, I look worse, but the heart's big. We talked about the Lions and how not that wins don't mean anything, but that this coaching staff, this GM, Quinn and Patricia, have been so bad and been so untrustworthy that you go to Jacksonville, win a game you're favorite, and you're supposed to do that. Jacksonville sucks. Maybe they beat Atlanta, a team that was 0-5 before they won last week and beat the Vikings. It's all about what matters when it really matters. And so far, in Patricia's, almost 2.5 years, in Quinn's almost 5 years, the Lions in the biggest moments have been, I already hear, like Jim Harbaugh in his biggest moments, with Michigan coming back, they haven't gotten it done. So let's say they beat Atlanta. Let's get into that, Dennis, as you look at this Atlanta game coming up this weekend. I mentioned Atlanta finally got off the schneid, and then you have a Lions team that this would be 2 wins in a row. Atlanta's offense pretty solid. Stafford and Matt Ryan should always put up big numbers when they play each other, exciting games. But even if they win this game and go 3-3, I'm not back on the train. I'm not feeling good about it.
Well, I'll feel a lot better. I could look back to Jacksonville and say, hey, they ran the ball and stopped the run. Those are two things that you do if you want to be a team that wins games, and they did that. Now, if they go down in Atlanta without Trufant and they're able to shut down or find a way to win the game with the way Ridley and Jones and Matty Ice has got going, that's different than, stopping Minshew and Chark and company. This would be, more impressive. Now, jumping back on the bandwagon and acting like they're going to do something, or hey, it would be impressive just because it's the Lions and because they've been so unimpressive because they've failed to back anything up or stack wins, and so all of those things. So they put themselves. It's a positive conversation if you're so inclined. I mean, you might be inclined to say, hey, I'd just rather see them get blown out. So maybe they blow out the coaching staff and the GM and everything else, which is understandable. I mean, I
Sure.
get that. I get that angle. I don't think if they win, we should be sitting here next week talking about, hey, well, maybe they really found something here, and start talking about, hey, playoffs or
Playoffs,
right? It's really down to just seeing if they can do it, which I don't think they're going to. Spoiler alert, I don't think they're going to be able to handle Julio Jones. I don't think they're going to be able to handle Calvin Ridley, not with the way Matt Ryan's been going about things. Now, I didn't think they would be able to handle Kyler Murray either, and they did. So, but, that's the way it looks to me right now. It seems impossible that they're going to be able to stop the dynamic duo from the Falcons, but no.
Well, and that Falcons team obviously relaxed after Dimitrov and Quinn was fired, and the Vikings aren't a very good team either right now. But they looked really good and dominated on the road in Minnesota. And then you look at this game, two teams that have kind of relaxed, offense getting there, DeAndre Swift playing good for the Lions. You mentioned the dynamic duo of Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley, Comedy's Castle in Atlanta. And for me, it's like I want to get sucked back in because I'm a big Lions fan. but I've been very down on them. I've been very frustrated because I don't buy that this team is going anywhere. I need to see a coaching staff and a GM that can build this team the right way going forward. I was high on Patricia. I was high on Quinn. They've completely fallen out of favor in my view. But I will say this. I'm not going to give up because I never, me, Dennis, I'm not built that way. If the Lions win this week in Atlanta with all the things you just threw out there and the fact you've got good talent on the Atlanta offensive side and the Lions have had all these issues, if they go out there and go 3-3 and look good doing it, and Swift does another good game, Galladay and Stafford, and the Lions defense has a pass rush on Matt Ryan, if that happens, I will say, you know what? Maybe there is a small chance this team could really change the way they've been looked at and the way they played and the way they're perceived over the next 3 or 4 weeks after that, winning 3 or 4 games or winning 4 or 5 games. But I'm not going to jump back on as much as I would love to until they really start winning a bunch of games against good teams and look like an actual NFL team. Like the entire NFC East, we saw Giants and Eagles last night. I mean, those teams are garbage. If you're doing this against teams like Kansas City and, teams like San Francisco, the way they, not necessarily this year as much, but the way the Niners have been in the last couple of years, you're doing against good teams. That's one thing. Right now, the Lions have done nothing except blow big leads and beat a bad team in Jacksonville. So I can't get back there yet.
Yeah, you're right. If we're talking about beating a good team, maybe the Colts are a good team next week.
Sure.
But after that, I mean, they've got a bunch of what should be, or at least I shouldn't say should, because the Washington football team is probably saying, "Hey, we can get a win against the Lions." That's what everybody's saying. But the point about going out there and possibly beating a good team, if they won this week and then they went out and beat the Colts, then you're thinking, the Colts. They've got some things. They don't play the Packers for a while. The thing is that really does set up well for them, but they got to do the first thing. A win, at least for probably about a month then, saves Patricia from being on he could be out of here. Like Sunday, he could be out of here. I mean, there's that possibility.
Sure.
Still, that to me is the biggest part of this game. The Lions come out, win the game on Sunday. Matt Patricia's not going to get fired, but they go out and get their doors blown off and get embarrassed. It's a real possibility that he could be shown the door. So, to me, that's the biggest part of the game. And then getting some wins just means that they put themselves at least in position to go out there and show what looks like a pretty good Colts team, that they could show something that they would be able to climb back into this thing.
I think you put that out there perfectly. Now let's give our predictions for this weekend's battle with the Dirty Birds. Fifth, you go first here. Right now, the Lions are getting 2.5. There were some 3s out there, but there is some money coming in on Detroit. How do you see this one on Sunday?
I see it just under the over and under total, 30-24. I'll take the Falcons.
Yeah, and listen, I've stressed about this all week long because you know me. I don't want to fall. I've been very fair and balanced with the Lions. The total, by the way, 55.5 that you mentioned. I don't want to fall into my own trap. I don't think the Lions are a good team. I think the Lions have talent. I think the Lions are capable of being a good team. But I'm going to fall back into the trap because I think the Lions win this game. And I'm not saying that I'd be that impressed. The Falcons are not a good team either as far as a complete football team like a Kansas City, Seattle, Pittsburgh, etc. But I think in the end, the Stafford and that Lions offense with Swift and Galladay and Hockenham are just enough. I'll give it 30-29. Maybe a last-second touchdown, last-second Prater field goal. 30-29 Lions. I'm probably being stupid, but that's where I'm at.
You know what? It's an amazing selection.
You love my selection.
I like that. I have to admit, I like that selection. To hear somebody verbalize it, and now I can actually see you as well, talking through it. I feel like I'm on the other side of the table from you. I've seen it before in studio, and there it is. You did it. You made the pick.
I love you. Can I throw you a quick audible because you're wearing such an awesome Michigan jersey? Or is that a shirt or a jersey?
It's a shirt from Mott's Hospital.
Oh, beautiful shirt. Oh, I like that. Block out cancer. Let's just quickly pick the Michigan game. And by the way, I'm going to break some news here. I've got, I love the odds and figuring out where games are and point spreads and why they're moving. I've got some handicapping sources, Fithian, and I just talked to one who said there is some news about possible major COVID issues with Minnesota. Not necessarily meaning the game will get canceled or anything, but we don't know who's going to play, who it is. The line is still Michigan -3. I wonder where you're at with, obviously, Tanner Morgan, the great quarterback from Minnesota, PJ Fleck, and the Gophs. From what I've seen, the consensus favorite nationally to win the Big Ten West, and Michigan's first game with Joe Milton. How do you see the battle for the Little Brown Jug tomorrow night? I can't believe it.
Yeah, first the speculation on the COVID and how it could affect the Gophers. It sounds like their offensive line is the one that it could be both tackles, could be the right side of the offensive line there for Minnesota. They have all 5 of their starters returning from last year, so that would be huge. I just think Minnesota has more answers and Michigan more questions in this one. Maybe Joe Milton will go out there and he'll be fabulous and he'll light the world on fire. And, Michigan's offense will be fabulous with 4 new offensive linemen out there starting the game for him. But, Tanner Morgan, Rashad Bateman,
one of the best receivers in football.
Mo Ibrahim, he's going to be wearing 0. Bateman will be. To me, that's a lot of answers that they have. So unfortunately, hoping that I'm wrong with this selection, I'm picking the Gophers 30-27.
Yeah, and I've stressed about this one all week long. I think that Michigan still has more talent. I think this is Harbaugh. It's not his last stand. Harbaugh seems to be safe job-wise. We know we've talked about that, you and I, many times. But this is the year he's got. It's an 8-game year. The pressure's off in some ways. They still can't go 4-4. They can't go 5-3. Michigan's got to win, I would say, probably 9 games or more if you really want to feel good about it. This is one of them they've got to get off the right foot. I think in the end, the Wolverine talent, Milton, I am expecting him to look good. From what I'm hearing in practice, he has looked great, and as for the last couple of years, but definitely as they've gotten ready for the game tomorrow night. I'll go Michigan 31, Minnesota 28, down to the wire. Morgan versus Milton. We'll see this new look Michigan offensive line. There's a lot of things to be nervous about if you're a Wolverine fan, but I think in the end, Harbaugh gets the job done. Michigan does own Minnesota, by the way, as we all know, over the last 30, 40 years. So it's not like Minnesota's had a lot of great moments against Michigan, but this is a different Minnesota team. So it's not your father's Gophers or your cousin's Gophers. It's maybe your tutor's kid's Gophers. But I'm going to go 31-28 Michigan.
Yeah, it's your Western Michigan Broncos head coach Gophers with PJ Fleck. That's the difference.
That is. All right, let's get right into picking our games. Quickly, though, I wanted to mention our good friends at Thomas McGee's, great sponsor of Football Friday, a joint task force. Good afternoon production. Best place to watch MMA, boxing, down in Eastern Market. They have all the stuff on the patio, all the social distancing measures that are in place right now for our good friends down there at Thomas McGee's. That is a great place to watch a ball game. They have bitter beer. They have tons on tap. So we appreciate them sponsoring us and being great friends of the show. And Dennis, they want us to come down there, get us some drinks, watch a game, and we'll do a live broadcast.
Wow, man. Those are all like my favorite things to do. So let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, now, Fifth, you and I have been pretty, I would say, pretty damn good all year long picking games. We were both 2-1 last week. We had a couple games different that gave us the 2-1 record. But we've got an interesting slate this week. Are you ready for Fithian Leach NFL Pick Festival?
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be quite sick. And this is, I can't believe all of a sudden we're already in week 7. It feels like it's just flown by. But let's get into this here. And we've got 3 games for you, the 3-pack. And we'll start with a real interesting one. How good are these Titans looking for much of the year against a Steelers team that I believe is super? I think they could be a Super Bowl champion. Titans -1 at home. Both teams playing good football. Deontay Johnson, I think he's going to screw both our fantasy teams, at least mine. He's healthy. He should be out there. Chase Claypool, Ben Roethlisberger, you got Tannehill, Derrick Henry. What did he have? 200-plus yards and a 94-yard touchdown run? That guy's incredible. How do you see Titans and Steelers, the slimmest of point spreads?
Yeah, what a great game on paper going in. The one thing I don't like is the Titans defense. And, King Henry's fabulous and everything, but the Steelers, I know they just lost Devin Bush for the year, but they might be the best defense in the NFL. And I say this every week. I'm going to say it again. The receivers for the Steelers, you just went through most of them, if not all of them there. They've got the best receiving core in the NFL, and Roethlisberger looks really good here. So, I'm going to take the Steelers to go in. I think they're the more complete team. I think they can handle Henry and Tannehill. I like the Steelers, black and yellow.
I think it's a black and yellow. I think it's a genius pick. And listen, we know the Titans are one of the beatings of the NFL, a few 5-0, and we know that the Steelers right now are a team that has been right there. And I think the Titans come back to beat Houston in overtime last week was insane. But I'm with you on this. I think that the Steelers are more complete. I think the Titans defense has been a problem. The Texans, who could do anything right, I know it was an overtime game, but scored 36 against them. I think Big Ben, Johnson, Claypool, the entire offense just comes to life as it's been much of the year. I think in the end, the Steelers are too much. I'll take the point. It really would be like a small outright upset, which we love to do, you and I. I'll give it Steelers 35, Titans 24. Big win for Big Ben and the black and yellow. All right, how about this one, my friend? Very, very interesting game as well. When you look at what the Packers were not able to do last week against Tom Brady and the Bucs, the Texans get off a schneid and finally play a decent game and almost beat Tennessee. Now you've got Green Bay going into Houston. The Packers minus 3 and a hook, 3.5 or 3 and a swizzle. And I'm not buying the Texans at all. They played much better last week. But is there a problem with Aaron Rodgers, Matt LaFleur, and the Packers? Or was this one bad game against Tom Brady and a great Tampa Bay defense?
Yeah, great. I think you said it. Great Tampa Bay defense there. And, if you're able to get any quarterback and smack him in the mouth and push him around like Sue was able to do, that's going to disrupt some things. I think the big key, I wouldn't bet this game today because Aaron Jones, we talk about Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Jones is the pivotal player for that Packers offense. He's the most dangerous player there. He didn't practice today. So, I'm not betting the Packers without Aaron Jones coming up on Sunday. So, that's a game. This is a game I think you have to stay away from. Not knowing the status of Jones, sounds like he'd be pretty banged up even if he was to play. But he's such a dynamic playmaker for that Packers offense that I would stay away from that. But, and you know what? I've seen this from the Texans before. Romeo Crennel scares me, backing him. But Deshaun Watson is a great quarterback, and we've seen them start slow before, then get out and go on a tear. I like the Texans here, and I like the Texans outright, and I certainly would like them if Aaron Jones is sidelined in this game. Give me the Texans.
Yeah, you explained that perfectly because Aaron Jones, and it's funny because in my fantasy league, Aaron Jones, for 2 years, the guy that had him, there was always just such big moments with Aaron Jones. He'd have his explosions of points, and obviously how the Packers win games. I'm not buying the Texans at all, but I think you made a very, very interesting point about Deshaun Watson, who we know is a great quarterback. He's been playing terrible, and obviously losing his best receiver, DeAndre Hopkins, doesn't help. But whether it's Will Fuller or a couple others that have given, obviously, the Houston Texans at least something in the receiving game, I think if they're a live home dome dog, I think Aaron Rodgers goes in there, plays well. Packers might win this game, but it's really, really close. So I'm going to take the points as well. 2 in a row, by the way. We're on the same side. I'll take Houston plus 3.5, but I still think Green Bay can win this game. No Aaron Jones, though, like you mentioned. They could be an outright upset, the Houston Texans. All right, we're both on so far Pittsburgh plus 1 against Tennessee. The battle of the 5-0 teams. The other one is obviously Seattle at 5-0. And both on the Texans at home, getting 3.5 against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, rooting for their game against Tampa. Now, another interesting 3.5 point spread fifth. How about this one? You had the Raiders game. The Raiders game get moved because there's COVID issues with the Raiders offensive line. And Raiders and Chiefs are going to be at 4:15 instead of Sunday Night Football. They moved the Cardinals and Seattle game to Sunday Night Football in case they had to get rid of the other game. So at least there's a Sunday Night Football game. You've got an Arizona team that made Dallas, was awful, and has a terrible defense, looks silly on Monday Night Football. And then you've got a Seattle team that's undefeated, off of by 5-0, Russell Wilson MVP type year. This is a tough NFC West battle. Let me go first on this one. I think that Seattle is legit. But I think so is Arizona right now with Kyler Murray. And spoiler alert, Christian Kirk will come into play in our segment in a second. He had a huge day. Kenyon Drake. You got the running game going nuts. I think Arizona, they might not win it, but I'm taking the 3.5, the 3 and a hook with the Cardinals on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, I like Arizona to stay within that number 2. And I'll tell you what, if Jamal Adams isn't playing, the Seahawks offense is great. And it really is humming there with Russ is cooking. And, DK Metcalf, maybe he is the next Megatron. Chris Collinsworth thinks he's the next Jerry Rice. I mean, the guy's an absolute monster. And you just think, from Lockett and what they have at their disposal there, Carson's doing a pretty good job at running back. But, they went all in this year and went to get Jamal Adams. They're flirting around with Antonio Brown, who, by the way, is visiting the Buccaneers. I just saw that go on my phone here. So Jamal Adams, if he's not playing, I like the Cards outright. I like him to keep it close. I'll take those 3.5 points anyway. So you and I like all three of the same games.
Well, you know what that means? That means we're going 3-0 the last time.
That means bet them.
Yeah, bet them all. Bet them all. All right, so once again, both me and Fifth are on the Steelers plus the 1, the Texans at home plus the 3.5 against Aaron Rodgers and Green Bay, and the Cardinals off that big win against the Dallas Cowboys Monday Night Football at home on Sunday Night Football against Seattle. How about the last time Arizona went back-to-back Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, or vice versa? Probably never, Dennis. That's how you do a NFL pick festival with Fithian and Leach. All right, Dennis, you obviously know, as people that watch the show, we appreciate all you that always tune in every week on Friday or Football Friday. We love fantasy football, and we like doing this every week, just kind of giving our thoughts on where we're at overall. Maybe, obviously season long, but also throwing in daily fantasy. We've got our low-price daily fantasy starters in a second. But when you look at week 7 now, we're almost, I guess, technically almost halfway through the season game-wise, but I think the season will get extended. The Super Bowl could be in March or late February. But where are you at with fantasy football through week 7? Your big kind of news and notes and feelings on it.
Well, it just is a really hard year, man. It's just, of course, we figured it probably would be with the pandemic. I don't even know if you're going to get a game next week, but with different guys out and different guys coming out, I'm throwing in, like, I thought I really liked my team. Here I am last night, putting Bart Scott into my lineup, not feeling really strong about that. But he did get a touchdown there at the end. He's a nice little player. So I had him week 1, too. I thought that was a smart play, and he only came up with like 1 or 2 points. But he came up big last night. It's really wild, man. Like, I think I thought, like, hey, Deontay Johnson, I had him going. Thought it was a really smart pick. But then 2 weeks in a row, he ends up getting hurt. Now Claypool goes off, and I don't even know if that's going to be a good start or not, but I'm hanging on to him. It's a real cluster. It's being able to get Kyler Murray, who we talked about, who looks at the kind of guy that can win you the league. It's wild that way.
Yeah, I'll tell you this, and by the way, I will give some, kudos to my defending champion squad. I've won 2 in a row, one of them by a miracle, that late Johnny Smith touchdown 2 weeks ago. But I'm with you. It has been really hard. It's much like handicapping college football. There's so many COVID issues. There's so many teams. I think the last stat I heard was top 10 teams are like 2-11 against the spread, something like that in college football. Much like that in fantasy football in the NFL. It's been very hard because you've had injuries. You've had, obviously, teams that have been out for COVID. I don't know how your league has been doing, Dennis, with this, but my league, luckily, we have great commissioners that are working really hard on it. We have COVID spots. We have, contingencies in place where we have a guy that can at least be put in there in case a game is canceled. So it's not like you have to worry about putting the guy in there and you might lose him for COVID. It's very frustrating because it's not a regular year. It won't be a regular year. You've seen some of the great stars, guys like Saquon Barkley and others, McCaffrey, out for the year, out for weeks. So it just our waiver wire, we have a 12-team league fifth. We have the fab $200 budget. The waiver wire is as disgusting as I've ever seen a waiver wire in my entire life. I mean, I'm sure yours is the same way.
Yeah, look, you're relying on Michael Thomas, the guys like that. You're not getting a whole lot from some of the guys that, you thought that you were banking on. You talked about a miracle win 2 weeks ago, right? I had a win that I've never had in over 20 years. I didn't have the tiebreaker, and it goes in. He had Patrick Mahomes on that Monday night game. And I look up, and he ends up getting the amount of points to tie me, and so I lose the tiebreaker. But if you're watching that game, Mahomes goes out and starts kneeling down because the Chiefs gets the ball. They get the ball back, and instead of just taking one knee and going straight down, he goes back 5 yards, and it away from his rushing total. And the 3 kneel downs was just enough to drop him a point, and ended up winning on 3 kneel downs. And like a -8 yards there. So it was talking about a miracle win. That was it for me.
Hey, and we're doing a family league, Dennis, back-to-back weeks, just for fun, 6 teams with your favorite, the O is my nephew.
Couple $100.
Yeah, it's 500 entry a person, or it has his college savings account thrown in there. I beat him by 0.4. I beat my sister, her first ever fantasy year, by 0.6. And I think I'm undefeated, and I'm not like bragging or anything. But no, it's been crazy. It's been crazy. But the one thing I'll say before we get into our low price daily fantasy stunners, which we love giving you each week, and Dennis has 2 great ones. I love both of his. I'll tell you this: keep fighting. It's a long year. It's only week 7. There's plenty of time. If you're 0-7, you're probably done. But if you're a team that has, you're 2-5, 1-6, obviously 3-4, or I'm sorry, 3-3, you're right around that kind of, on the precipice or the edge of being out of it for sure or getting back in. Keep looking at the waiver wire. Keep fighting hard because fifth, you never know. I've seen teams start 0-6 and win the rest of the regular season games, go 7-6, make the playoffs, and get to the title game. So you're not out of it. Just keep fighting.
No, who knows, man? Like, you go out there and pick up Antonio Brown and Tonga Vailoa. Those guys light it up. Those guys, like, get a 5-game stretch where they're lighting it up. I don't know. Like, I actually like both of those pickups there for, like, long shots, like lottery tickets.
Sure.
Those are the kind of guys that can win you leagues.
Do you, really quick before we get into our daily fantasy starters, I think the idea to go to I understand they had a plan, they're going to stick with it. Florida's down in Miami. But Fitzpatrick is playing great football. Tua, by all accounts, obviously, is going to be an incredible leader and got emotional when he was put in the game for the first time last week against the Jets. Do you think that was a good move by them?
Yeah, it's not like they're undefeated or anything. They're a 500 football team, and I think they did Fitzpatrick a favor. You know what? We've seen how he goes. He'll end up blowing up in a game or two, fizzling out. Then they would put Tua in.
Right.
It comes at the perfect time. So they beat the Jets. They did play really well against San Francisco. And you know what? This is how teams do it. Like, you need to have a quarterback on a rookie deal, and you got to get him up and running. That's how you win in the NFL right now. So you got Fitzpatrick, and he's done a nice job and everything, but he knew coming in there he was just a placeholder and a bridge quarterback. And like I said, they did him a favor. The team next year that drafts Lawrence or Fields or not, they'll go and take Fitzpatrick and they'll start him, and then he'll be out in another 4 or 5 games. That's not bad. Like,
nope.
He's not going to win you a Super Bowl.
7-something teams and has always found a way to be in this league for over 10 years. I mean, that's great from a guy from Harvard, and you're right, it probably was doing him a favor. Well, we're going to do you some favors here because Fifth and I both love daily fantasy. I haven't been doing that great this year. I think you've been doing better than me, but I love it, and you do too. And we know if you're going to win, whether it's one of the huge contests that is either like doing the smaller ones like the 10-mans or whatever they are. And I know you've said in the past you do this at 1 o'clock games only, but you've got to have a low price stunner. We call them, daily fantasy low price stunners. And what that means is not a guy that's, $9,000, $8,000, $7,000, a guy that's $5,000 or $4,400, because that's how you fill the roster out and beat the other people that are trying to, fill their whole bankroll with the top level guys. You got to have a Boston Scott type guy that comes out of nowhere, or the guy that I'll mention in a second that had a huge night on Monday Night Football. When it comes to low price stunners, Dennis, we've been pretty good with these. Who do you like this week? I think you have 2 selections for us.
Well, if you go back and check the tape last week, I was back on Claypool, and then I threw Justin Jefferson in the slot. Yep. And I put Justin Jefferson, and this is the one thing, like you mentioned, I play the 1 o'clock only slates, 5 teams, 8 teams, 10 teams. This is the first time that I ever went and wished I was in like one of those, $10 million things. Jefferson, Derrick Henry, down the line, man. I was got Philip Lindsay. I had in there as a low price stunner. He had 100 yards, but Jefferson was the player of the week in Claypool. I mean, that's the way. I'm sitting there. I know I would have cashed no matter. Like, it was almost the perfect lineup. I hadn't had that in 3 years, but when you see it and you're blowing everybody out by like 40, 50 points, you're like, wow, this is what it's like if you.
What it feels like.
This is how you'd win $1 million, but. Right. I've never been in any of the $1 million ones, so
you will soon enough.
Maybe I'll tell you what. I go out there and put another perfect lineup together. I'm thinking, you know what? I got to do it. Well, you know what? Joe Mixon's out, so Giovanni Bernard is in there. It's against the Browns. I think it's almost a must play here. Looking at Bernard, at least if you play 1 or 2. If you only play 1, I think you got to play him. I think your opponents will be looking at him as well. But I also. Without Aaron Jones practicing today for the Packers and knowing how bad the Texans' rush defense is, Jamal Williams is somebody that I'm going to be looking at as well. If you get to Sunday and you get the word that Jones isn't going to go, there's another low-price stunner. Then you just stack. I did that. I took Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley against the Lions. I like DeAndre Swift going back to Georgia against the Falcons. And,
How about this guy? How about this guy, Darren Fells?
Darren Fells.
There it is.
Yeah, well, Deshaun Watson's got to throw the ball to somebody. And Fells has been doing pretty good for him there. And he's not very pricey. So there you go. Get yourself some Fells, some Swift. Look at some Jamal Williams, Giovanni Bernard, and then you can stack yourself with Kamara, Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, and that's how you're going to win.
I love it, and this is my guy. I alluded to him earlier. Huge night on Monday Night Football. How about Captain Kirk? Christian Kirk. He's floating around for $4,200 right now. And you mentioned Gio Bernard, so is he. I think Christian Kirk, who I actually picked up a few weeks ago for my regular fantasy team, could be a huge, huge play against the Seahawks on Sunday Night Football. I know it's not in your range because it's not a 1 p.m. game, but he's the kind of guy you need fifth. Maybe you should do a Sunday night special just for me and Captain Kirk, my friend.
Yeah, and it looks like I just saw Antonio Brown. Did it say he's reaching an agreement or they're finalizing an agreement with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? So
it looks like they're finalizing.
I tell you what, man, if you were a Bucs doubter and then you watch that defense and you look at the rest of the NFC, you know, Tom Brady, if Tom Brady takes the Bucs to the Super Bowl, I mean, it's possible when you start looking at how the Saints and the Packers, I mean, like, who's the best team? Seattle. I mean,
I think Seattle's the best right now.
If you told me that it was a Seattle and Tampa Bay in the NFC Championship game, I mean, those would be the two teams that I would pick right now.
Could you believe, I mean, we know that he's the GOAT, Brady, but Jameis Winston, obviously, what was he, 30 for 30, man, 30 picks, 30 touchdowns, first time ever. They were okay last year. The defense, obviously, with Calhoun and others, and you mentioned Sue, has gotten better. If they somehow go to the Super Bowl and win it with Tom Brady for his 7th title, I mean, obviously, he's the best ever, Dennis, but would that put him in a category to do it at, you know, past 40 years old, to do it with a brand new team, all those different records? I think there's only, Manning and a couple others that have won Super Bowls with multiple teams. But if he did that, he might be looked at as the greatest athlete ever. I don't know. It's a long way off. But I thought there was no chance the Bucs were going to be as competitive as they've been. I knew they'd be good, and Brady would keep them above water because he doesn't throw a lot of picks like Winston did. And Winston's such a crazy player, he's either incredibly good or incredibly awful or both in the same game. But if Brady does it, Dennis, he might be looked at as the greatest athlete ever. To do it at 43, it's crazy.
Yeah, to do it at 43. And he's certainly like the one argument about, you know, Belichick or Brady, you know, which one it was, if he would go
That'd be over.
That would certainly, whether it's fair or not, that would be something else. But, you know, here we are. It was only 2 weeks ago where he forgot that it was 4th down. And if he didn't come out and play well the following week, people were going to be like, the guy's 43, it's over. But, you know, here he is. Now it looks like they got the inside track, you know, at the NFC Championship game. So that's why we love football, man.
Yep.
It's and now we got the Big Ten back. It just feels like we're back at home. Like all these things that are happening, it feels right. So hopefully we just have a great weekend. All this COVID that's flying around, and you know, hopefully settle that down, play football, and people can be safe, and you know, and we can get through it. Let's get through it.
Fifth, it doesn't get any better than spending some time with you every Friday. I love these shows, and I love you. Yeah,
likewise. Take care, and we'll talk next week.
Yep, there's those Twitters down there at Dennis Fithian, at DanLeach971. For the great Dennis Fithian, go blue. I'm Dan Leach. Oh, look, are you working out? Spread love.
I'm back.
Not hate. Yep, you're looking great. Wear a mask. Believe in the dream. We'll see you next time on Football Friday. Peace.